product that is aimed at changing the world, but you can incorporate sustainability in all kind of businesses.
The conference today is very interesting. It's a place for network and networking.
The difference with Africa is that the problem is now.
Investing in Africa, like we said, those businesses can actually help drive change in developing the continent itself.
We say we innovate, we connect, and we accelerate. It was really nice to see how we all came together. I think unity is strength. It's up to us. It's no one else. It's always up to us. What do we need to do next?
I wish I had come earlier because this is the first time I'm participating in person. Our team has been here invested and sort of, really made sure that, this event was one event that we never missed. But I'm excited to actually see the scene, right? So especially in the context of everything that's happening in Europe and where Berlin is becoming, the hub for startups and innovation, it's exciting to hear the conversation around Africa popping up, right? To be thinking about African solutions in the context of a European Innovation Hub is absolutely fantastic. So I look forward to sort of, a few more years of great collaboration and look forward to seeing the number of participants, ideas coming through as well in volume.
It's really interesting how, with what intensity the panelists have been speaking and also the reaction out of the audience. It's a very diverse conference. There are lots of different topics addressed to, a lot of opinions that are voiced. And I'm impressed actually with the quality of the panelists. You have gathered high-level panelist group out of tech, out of VC, out of investments, and also in terms of advisors.
The main takeaway of the panel is how those people on the ground making things happen can connect to people like us working in development financial institutions. When we talk about innovation, I think it's not just reinventing the wheel, but it's also about learning from all those African diaspora people living in Europe, in Germany, in France, in the United States, taking the best of them in terms of innovation and bringing back to the continent. And this is a space where Afrolynk is good at, and for us it's very key to leverage on Afrolynk network and what they have been doing on so many years, so that to help those young people on the continent.
itself so much into our lives that
So please tell us who you are and
It's been useful.
all right, enjoy your conversation.
African entrepreneurs, tech people, etc. So therefore, I think it is a super important event, and it should be annually and maybe even further scaled up.
Thank you, Afrolynk, for providing us with this opportunity.
Okay, I'm Clemens. I'm working for the BMZ, and I'm working for the division Digital Technologies and Development Corporation, and we're supporting the Afrolynk conference, and we're supporting innovations in Africa.
Up to us. It's no one else. It's always up to us. What do we need to do next?
So, my name is Cecil, Nutakor. I'm the founder and CEO at eCampus. It's a great pleasure to be a part of the Afrolynk Global Virtual Conference. And I'm glad to be speaking at the same section with Dorothy, who I've known since 2004. Dorothy actually made me fall in love with computers again at the Ghana India Kofi Annan Center of Excellence in ICT. And that has become the backbone of my life. I remember during that time, my passion for education, I hope it still remains the same, was just, blowing and glowing. But then as far back as 2004, you could think of things like computer penetration rates very low. Smartphones were not really there, and even internet penetration was a big problem because those were the days of the ISPs, if you remember. So I think with the help of the ICT for Accelerated Development Policy, which Dorothy was hardly a lot involved in, we all did our contributions here and there. That really helped Ghana to take off within the ICT, and for that matter, trying to use technology to make improvements in our country. Around that same time, I realized that if we could take education online, it would be very useful. It would be very useful for us. But unfortunately, what was happening at the time was we didn't have enough acceptance. We didn't have enough acceptance for education to be accepted online. And I could understand at the time. Because around that time, penetration rates were low. People couldn't just imagine how education could go online. They were doubting issues of quality, whether people would be willing to even or have the skills. So I'll share an experience in 2005 when we managed to convince a number of universities, I think 2 of them at the time, but Regent University got on board quite aggressively. Within 1 semester, what we realized was the teachers or our lecturers or facilitators saw using online tools as extra work, because they have to manage platforms, upload their content. They saw it as extra work and it wasn't as attractive to them. So at the time, deployment we did became a white elephant. So we had to find ways to pivot, right? We've gone through a number of pivots. Another challenge too has been with the tradition of lecturers or teachers kind of monetizing their lecture materials. So going online for them was a bit difficult, because when the thing is online and everybody can have access to it, they might not be able to monetize it as much as they want. And we try to explain to them how even easier it will be to monetize content online. Now, fast forward 2020, the fortunate happened. And when COVID hit, it dawned on everyone that we could have made the best out of e-learning or online learning back then. It was a mixed thing, you know. A group of people were kind of ready, because those are like the international schools who had internet connectivity, computers and stuff. And most affluent parents of those students had smartphones. So we saw a quick rise in demand for e-learning tools, especially our platform as well. And the numbers were staggering, very staggering. By the end of second quarter, that's 2020, eCampus had recorded almost 12,000 new accounts. Those are signups, which for us was very incredible. And if you compare that to 2 years ago, that number in just a quarter overtook the numbers we had in an entire 24 months, which was 8,000. So that was telling us something. Another thing we noticed was, despite the decline in signups, about 51.6% of our new signups did not find subject areas of interest to them within the 20 subjects available on eCampus. So clearly, the lack of investment for the past, since 2015, where we actively went public in terms of being a B2C, we couldn't invest enough into producing a lot of content that will cut across a number of subjects, simply because we're not getting the demand that would drive investors to put in that kind of investment. Content production is very expensive. So although we had great response from users, we couldn't meet the demand. And that became a bit of a problem for us. But we managed to retain up to 48.3% of our users with the content that we had. Another interesting thing that we noticed when COVID hit was the appetite of government all of a sudden to move everything online, even public sector activities online, which just a year or 2 years ago was unthinkable, was like impossible. But today, everybody realized that it is possible. So my take on this is, yes, COVID was a blessing to our company, eCampus, by helping validate what we're trying to validate, that we can have quality education, quality training, delivery using technology. It validated that. It also, as a blessing, exposed one of the things we have always been championing, that we need to begin to think of internet as a basic human right as a people. The way we worry about shelter, the way we worry about healthcare, the way we worry about food, the way we worry about women's rights, children's rights, it's about time to put the right access internet at the forefront of these challenges. Because clearly, without the internet, no one would have been able to perform any meaningful activity during these times. Even this conference wouldn't have been possible without internet. So I'm beginning to think maybe the advocacy we were doing from between 2007, 2005, using the Software Freedom Day, the Linux Accra, all those early days, the Kofi Annan's ICT for Accelerated Development, the ICT Center, all those things maybe were not hammering or making noise enough. So that's one challenge that I feel COVID has exposed. I also want to use the opportunity to be grateful to some of the telcos who saw the need to zero rate some of the educational platforms, including our own. So the likes of MTN, Vodafone, Surfline, Easy, they quickly zero rated some of these platforms so that users or learners do not need to pay for data to access learning material, which is great. The next conversation is, how do we sustain this? How do we make this model sustainable over the next 20 years, over the next 50 years, so that kids in preschool to at least high school, senior high school, do not have to worry about buying data to have access to learning? We're having those conversations, and we'll be glad if platforms like this begin to drive those conversations. Now, the curse in terms of what really broke the camel's back was the concept of people not understanding subscription. You know, we have this cultural or societal mindset that we want to own things. So in as much as there was demand and people wanted content and they were willing to pay, they didn't quite appreciate the concept of subscription, where they have to subscribe monthly or by term or semester or quarterly or annually. They felt, I want to buy all the courses or the subjects my child needs and pay for it once and for all. And we had to spend a lot of time through our call centers explaining to parents that it doesn't work that way, because if you buy a textbook, you need to buy the next edition and the next edition and the next edition. If you subscribe to a textbook for the conversation, so subscribe to mathematics on eCampus, if it gets updated every day, you don't have to pay for the next editions. Like you get the benefits from using it as a subscription by getting your updates in terms of content updates, improvements, user experiences, more trends, record your analytics, your behavioral patterns, which is value you cannot get from a textbook. And you cannot own all this by paying for it outright. And sometimes we're forced to use examples like, do you own the entire Facebook platform because you want a page on it? So as an ecosystem, I would encourage us to try and find ways and means that we can make our population understand and appreciate the concept of subscription, because it is here to stay. Everything is moving subscription. Even mobility is becoming subscription. Accommodation is becoming subscription. So if we do not prepare our population, which is going to be 1.6 billion by 2050, to appreciate subscriptions, then most of the startups that we are funding in this ecosystem, from fintech to edtech to healthtech to agritech, who ride on subscription models, may find it very difficult to achieve product market fit or even make revenues to sustain themselves. So that's one of the real pains that I discovered through this period. But we did a survey, and the trends we are seeing are encouraging. Every 30 days, when we run a survey among our users, we're beginning to see, for example, the first survey we did at the end of April realized the pain of people not appreciating subscription. The one we did at the end of July has shown that there was a 2.6% increase in subscription levels, based on the fact that now they're beginning to say, okay, it makes sense for me to subscribe. And then another thing to realize was when we started introducing incentives, where you could use your points to subscribe for 1 week. If you get 1,000 points, you can subscribe for a month with those points. We noticed subscriptions were going up. So it is very interesting how we could build some kind of an incentive systems or incentive models into our subscription models. And I can understand, because growing up, incentives are very important in my culture and in our communities. You know, if you help the elderly with their heavy loads and they get home, they tell you thank you, and they give you something you can play with. It could be some sweets or some artifact or something. So maybe in our DNA, we're so used to incentives that if we don't get incentives, we are not encouraged to get things done. And I can appreciate that. So for my other colleagues in the startup ecosystem who are building subscription models, begin to think of how do you put on some level of incentives around it, like the airlines do with their air miles. Then that could maybe boost or be a catalyst to boost the adoption or acceptance of subscription within our market in Sub-Saharan Africa. Just to end it, I would like to say, let's see COVID as a positive reboot, right? As a great positive reboot on 3 notes. 1, COVID has rebooted our sense of ownership. COVID has showed us that we live in a continent where we do not control or own any of the things that we are consuming. So now, with the limitations and with the restrictions on imports and all of that, we are beginning to produce, we are beginning to create things that we can consume ourselves. Number 2, let's see COVID as a reboot in the sense that it is beginning to make us aware of the importance of technology and how we should make a fundamental requirement going forward. And then finally, let's see COVID as an opportunity so that we could build systems that integrate with each other to solve a bigger problem. For example, I have a platform and we have an e-learning platform, but we have a content deficit. There might be an institution out there who has a lot of content but does not have a platform that's as popular as own to distribute it. Why don't we collaborate, partner, and get this content out there? So these are the few things I like to share. And thank you for your attention.